Hello, my name is Kevin Boyle and I am the author of Hit It With a Bigger Hammer. I wrote the book to help change how society prevents crime and corruption because existing methods do not work. My background is in policing and corporate security management. It was in security management, in commerce, that I discovered the policing ideology we employed did not prevent offending. So I went about finding a method that did. This is the subject of Hit It With a Bigger Hammer. The title is cynical, as it was the answer given when I asked experts in the security industry how we could better prevent offending. It also portrays how society reacts to increasing crime, with more of the same policing that could not prevent it in the first place. My research confirmed that policing is at the top of the cliff of crime management, solely providing expert advice on crime prevention, as well as at the bottom of the cliff, prosecuting crime. You will note this duality is depicted in the caricature on the cover of my book, and you will also note its consequence, which is the absence of offence at the top of the cliff. The import of this dual role is that policing unwittingly self-perpetuates crime and ensures there is no dedicated method that successfully prevents it. The successful solution I researched and developed in the diametric antithesis of the policing ideology logically proves that policing cannot prevent crime. To many of you, this will mean very little, but in fact, it impacts on all of our lives in one way or another, and in ways you have probably not previously considered. For example, if you are an employee, a sportsperson, or an athlete, you will accept without question security management or integrity units employed in your company or organization to enforce governance rules relating to your conduct and behavior. But when this method fails to prevent the offending it is employed to prevent, you are subjected to more stringent rules and greater controls, just like wider society is when crime increases or serious crime spikes. But your workplace and sporting fields and stadiums are not the same as wider society. They are your places of work and sport that embrace inclusive values and cultures, fostering mutual trust and cooperation. The policing ideology is at odds with these values, as it is invasive and polarizing. It excludes and mistrusts you, and can even unfairly criminalize you, where you do not report offending or take certain steps to avoid others offending. It is only in the past 50 years that the policing ideology has been directly transported into commerce to prevent offending, and more latterly, in the past 20 years, that it has been transported into sport. I tried, but failed, to prevent it being adopted into sport when match fixing in cricket was exposed in 2000. It has since failed to prevent match fixing and corruption in cricket, and this presents as a seminal case study in my book. The solution I propose in Hit It With a Bigger Hammer universally includes you and excludes the policing ideology that is only invoked if mutually agreed intervention protocols fail to prevent isolated events of offending. And I have not yet referred to the exorbitant cost of security management that ultimately you pay for. My solution employs existing resources and organizations that negates the need for this unnecessary cost. There are many such advantages provided by my solution, but its major benefit is that it successfully overcomes the societal code of silence that presently protects the offenders and criminals in our society. It is because policing has coveted the role of prevention management since its inception over 2,000 years ago that the code of silence originated and has manifested into this present despotic social covenant. How ironic is that? On one hand, society enacts criminal laws and employs policing to enforce those laws, and on the other hand, it supports a code of silence around offending that protects its criminals. and criminals reinforce the code of silence with intimidatory threats of violence if they are informed upon. It is this senseless social covenant that inhibits crime prevention, and many in law enforcement in the past have attempted and failed to overcome it, including the FBI and the CIA in America. This simply reinforces my core argument that you cannot put out a solvent-induced fire with more solvents. The critical element in prevention is the ability to stop precursor offending before it manifests into more serious offending. The knowledge of offending is at the coalface with those in close proximity to the offender. By excluding those with this knowledge from its management, as policing naturally does, it is reliant on informers or whistleblowers who have to breach the code of silence where they are socially ostracized and labelled narcs and whistleblowers. By including everyone in managing offending, my solution overcomes the code of silence and allows those with knowledge to prevent it at its coalface before it becomes serious and prior to the need for policing. It builds a fence at the top of the cliff of societal crime management for the first time in its 2,000-year history. If you are a direct victim of crime or offending, you will lament the absence of an effective, dedicated prevention method that might have avoided your suffering. Or you might be an indirect victim without knowing it. You may have been made redundant from your employment, where someone is stealing and the company needs to offset its costs. Here, the company is the direct victim of the theft, but you are also an indirect victim. There are many examples of indirect victims of crime who are unaware of their plight. And there are also many examples of offenders being drawn into corruption simply for the lack of effective prevention measures that could have stopped their offending. Certain cricketers, both here in New Zealand and in Pakistan, come to mind. We are all victims in waiting, some direct and some indirect, and in truth, some of us are also offenders in waiting. We all need to act now to change the way we, as a society, prevent crime and corruption. Going into the 21st century and beyond, successful crime management can no longer rely upon archaic and nasty methods of dobbing in offenders or whistleblowing and informing on them. Methods that cause those trying to do the right thing being unfairly ostracized by the same society they are trying to help, or being put at risk of bullying, intimidation, and retaliation. Take the time to read my book to find out more about this and how we can make the changes necessary quite simply. You can help. I will also encourage you to watch the series of videos I will produce and make available to you from this website. Thanks for listening.